Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right. I hope you guys like the new intro. I decided to, Jim Lujan had sent over a really cool audio file of him saying, well, let's play this beautiful audio file just one more time. I'll play the short one. Ready?
Let's get ready to crumble! Let's get ready to crumble!
So he said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble. And I was like, this is the best audio ever. So I decided to go ahead and make an official intro to my stream, which I think is really a good thing, considering I'm going to be doing this a lot more. So we have a lot going on my YouTube channel today. At 9 o'clock, there's going to be a Artcasters where we're going to do an AMA with Corey Kerr about his art and other things. And and like a lot of, excuse me, a lot of fun stuff is going to be happening. But the one thing that I was planning on streaming all day today, and what ended up happening was instead we had our fish tank. It didn't have proper sealant on it, and so it's like about, I don't know, like 10, and the seal on our old fish tank is, and keep in mind, it's not an old fish tank. This thing's like maybe a week old. There's like water leaking out of the corner, and we're like, crap, because the thing with fish tanks is like the second there's a leak, that leak is only going to get bigger. It's kind of the law of water leaks. So we get like 2 giant buckets from Home Depot. We start like pumping the water out of the tank. We have to like put all the fish in one of the buckets, and then and then basically like call around to stores. Like, well, first we call the store we purchased it at, which no longer carries it, so they can't do an exchange. And they recommend, oh, well, why don't you guys just seal it? And we're like, well, okay, but we have fish in a bucket. We can't do that for like 48 hours because like the sealant on fish tanks takes about 48 hours to do. And keep in mind, you should, like if you get a fish tank, you're going to have to redo the sealant on the glass eventually. But needless to say, like a fish tank that's like literally like a week old should not be springing leaks. Like that's just kind of wild. So anyway, we call around all these different stores that are the same chain that we bought the fish tank at. And finally we found one that had the fish tank. Keep in mind, this is a 37 gallon or 39 gallon tank. It's almost 40 gallons, so it's not quite as simple as like a smaller tank to like replace and to get in the car and to clean out and all that fun stuff, and then get it to the store and get it returned. So then we get it returned, we get it all set up. I'm just going to go through this little story real quick, and then we'll get into art, obviously, as we said at the intro, regardless of like what kind of conversations we're having on here. There's going to be art. There's also going to be spice, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be spice because we are going to continue listening to this weird conversation from Tim Pool's podcast. where it was the culture war debating masculinity with Destiny and John Doyle and Lauren Chen. And so far from it, it's just made me realize that, like, a lot. I don't know. I think the John Doyle guy is kind of in the red pill community, and it's just bizarre, man. They have some wild ideas about like dating and about women, and it's like misogyny kind of wrapped up in a new bow with some kind of spin to it. But at the end of the day, they all kind of seem like the Tom Cruise character from I think Magnolia, where he's like this misogynistic guy, and then you find out that he has this like fractured relationship with his father, and that's why he's so broken and hates women so much. Anyhow, so we're going to be watching that. We're going to be watching some funny incels give advice on dating and make fun of it. And again, like I usually, when I'm looking at debates and stuff, I try to be fair. So it'll be fun to do. So that's coming. But I have to finish my fish story, okay? I have to finish my fish story. While we're doing the review of the debate, though, just so you know, we're going to be having to revise multiple pages of let's see here, of Not Death But Love, the Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, which is a graphic novel that I've been working on for a while. And we have to go back to like page 25 and revise the room, because we just noticed, I didn't notice this before, this slipped my research. There's amazing references of the Brownings villa as it was at the time, all over the internet, and that's wonderful because it gives me a lot to work with. Like I know when I'm drawing the room, like what it's going to look like, what particular furniture is going to be in there. And for anybody who's watching just now, if you're not familiar, it's a historical fiction graphic novel that takes place in the Victorian era, with, you know, two of the world's most famous poets. And so, anyhow, point being, we want it to be period authentic, at least as much as possible. Obviously, there's going to be times where we take liberties. What the writer noticed on the last page in a room, it's the Browning's bedroom at Casa Guidi in Florence, was that basically like their table lamps, they have like these table lamps and they have lampshades, and that's a big problem for Victorian era. Not that people didn't have lampshades, but like not a lot of people were rocking lampshades back then, because the majority of light at the time was through candles, through gas lights, so paraffin lamps, gas wall brackets, like attached to gas wall brackets. The chandeliers would have been like kind of like these wide candles that are like gigantic votives. Like I don't know what that kind of candle is, but it's like those wide ones. There's just a lot of stuff that's like candles, gas lamps, right? So basically, point being, I have to modify the room to not have these lamps in it. And when they do have lamps in it, to make them into either gas lamps, oil lamps, or candles. So that's going to be exciting, going through a bunch of old pages, because it was only noticed on this page that we're currently on, which is page 77, but there's multiple pages that take place in their bedroom. And so I basically need to go back and make sure every room in the bedroom doesn't have, you know, these lamps that basically didn't exist at the time. So we're not like basically making the mistake, the classic Braveheart mistake, where you have, you know, this giant epic, you know, expensive, really insanely challenging war sequence taking place back in the day, and then for no reason and whatsoever, one of the people within the background in the war is wearing Chuck Taylors. We don't want that. They didn't have sneakers back then. Now, this era, they had sneakers. They didn't have Chuck Taylors. They had like a weird modified kind of sneaker. It wasn't really a sneaker at this point. So it would be a faux pas to have sneakers. But having electricity in the houses is a pretty big faux pas. So, yeah, it's kind of equivalent to like drawing an electric toaster or something in that time. So, yeah, so we're going to work on that. And while we work on that, we're going to listen to the rest of the culture war. We're going to get spicy. It's going to get really interesting and spicy. That being said, let's finish our fish tank story. So the fish tank having this issue, you know, we have to get all the fish out, right? Our poor fish are in like a big, you know, those big Home Depot buckets. It's like a big, giant bucket. And then all of the sand and gravel from the bottom of the tank is in another bucket. And we have everything on our floor is wet. Luckily, we have tile floors, wood tile floors. So it's like, it's not ruining our floor. But this is just taking, you know, that takes hours to do, right? Like my wife pretty much like, luckily my wife had bought a pump like before that's for the tank. So luckily siphoning the water out wasn't as crazy as it could have been. But we finally do all of this and we go to exchange the tank. And it's a further away store than the original one because it's one that has the same tank. So we get to the store, we get the new tank. They're very nice, right? Because I've set up this tank, it's a little weird, but I know the whole process of it. So, oh, by the way, again, this is like, you know, oh, my son throws up in the car. I forgot about that because he gets car sick real easy. So my son throws up in the car. We get there. We exchange luckily because he gets car sick quite often, like we always keep like a bag in the car or something for that. Just so he can puke into the bag if he's feeling car sick. So all of that, we get there. They have the exact same tank, which is awesome. It's beautiful. It's very heavy. That takes about an hour. So we exchange like tanks, stuff like that. So now we're like 3 or 4 hours in to our day of fish tank fix. And finally, we get home. We set up everything. The first time I set it up, it took forever because I have never set up a tank of this size. I didn't know how the air pump worked for this like different kind of air pump. All of this stuff. This time, I know it all. Like, I know the whole process, so it goes real quick. We get the tank up. It's pretty much ready to go in like 30 minutes. Plug in the air pump. The bubbles aren't coming out of the air thing. It's like a bubble wall, which is really cool. It like takes up like the whole back of the tank. And the pump is just going, and the bubbles aren't coming out. So now I have to like start pulling apart the tubing from the air thing, the air bubble maker thing. And I'm pulling apart the tubing and I'm checking that air is flowing through. And I noticed that like everything up to like this one spot, which is like the stopper, it's like what was that called? Like a valve. It's like a compressor valve or something that basically the air goes through. And what its function is to do is to allow air to go through it, but to stop air coming back. That's the whole function of this little piece. And I noticed everything beyond that piece was not getting air. So like the air pump was pumping air fine, goes through the tube, won't go through this one spot. This is an exciting story. Spice will come soon. Don't worry, guys. It's not going to all be about fish tanks. We're going to work on art and we're going to get spicy. We're going to have to call it a night once we get to about 8:30. Because when we get to 8:30 on this same channel, there's going to be an episode of Artcasters where we're going to be having an Ask Me Anything with Corey Kerr. So stick around on my channel. We're going to be going for a long time, and I'll let you guys know when this stream wraps. But on my same channel, you're going to see Artcasters at 9 on obviously a different stream on this channel, but this channel. So if you haven't, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. And you can hear more exciting fish stories. I'm kidding. There's going to be spice. There's going to be commentary on Tim Pool's Culture War episode 20. We're going to continue our commentary on that. It's been pretty hilarious, I think. But I have to finish this fish story. So finally we find out, like, okay, it's something beyond the valve. And so we kind of find out, like, I just pull the valve out. I pull the tubing. We go to the pet store or whatever to get more tubing for the tank, which is going to be, you know, a ridiculous cost, which is a little frustrating because we literally just returned this same tank kit for like a fault in the product, and now we're getting a tank kit that has a fault in part of the product. And so we're driving to the pet store. Now we're like, 6 hours in. So I've lost like the majority of my day on this like fish tank thing at a time where I need to be like hunting for work, not cleaning fish tanks, So anyhow, so we're in the car, and I suddenly think, like, what I'm going to do is just like blow through the tubes and see if air is like traveling like through the tubes. And so I start pulling off a tube. I'll blow through it with my finger on the other end of it. Okay, air's coming through. Another part of the tube, like, because this is a crazy pump, like, so it has like a lot of weird little contraptions attached. So pull off the tube, blow through it. Okay, air's coming through the tube. I finally do that to everything. Finally, I get to the valve. There's a side to the valve that's an in. It says in, and that's the part that you're supposed to kind of blow through. And then the out is supposed to, you'd feel air on the other side. And it turns out no air. So all of this rigmarole for an hour or so extra. And it turns out it's just this little $5 valve for the pump. So we go to the pet store. Luckily, we've finally isolated what it was. We buy a little valve. We come back home. This thing I'd been playing with and messing with, I thought I had somehow messed up the setup or done something wrong. We pop the valve in. Boom, done. Everything's good. Then we have to transfer the fish. So we transfer the fish back. Their little home's all good. And now and by the way, we had to treat the water, all of that. And now the fish are all happy. They have a beautiful tank. That does not have a leak, that we don't have to reseal a literal week after we bought it. And so that was the exciting story, the epic tale of the fish tank. So now let's get into some art and let's do some commentary. So, okay, here's my page. And I'm really excited about this page. And I liked how it came out, but now we have to revise it to get rid of the lamps that are next to the two characters, or Robert and Elizabeth's bed, as well as the floor lamp. Like, there's a big other lamp. So there's like two lamps with lampshades, and then on panel 1 and on panel 3. So we have to kind of get rid of those lampshades. That's what we're going to work on. I kind of want to show off the awesome new intro one more time. So I'm going to play that one more time because I also need to get a glass of water. I clearly have been coughing a little bit, and so my throat must be a little dry. So I'm going to go do that. And when I would usually, at this point, play like a trailer for one of my books or something like that, but no, I would really like to show off the new intro for this channel. So bear with me, enjoy it. It has a countdown. You're going to be seeing this at the beginning of every episode of Joshua Kemble's live stream. And by the way, also, if you guys want to ask Corey Kerr a question on Artcasters tonight, feel free to message me on Facebook a question you wanted to ask Corey Kerr, and I will shoot it his way. It's an AMA with Corey Kerr. Okay, I'm going to re-show that intro. I'm going to get a glass of water. When I come back, let's check it out. It's the Spicy Cam. We're going to watch the rest of this horrifying conversation on the Culture War, Tim Pool's show, debating masculinity with John Doyle, Destiny, and Lauren Chen. We're going to comment on that. And and I'm going to try to change these lamps to lamps that would make a little more sense. All right, I hope you guys are ready. I'm trying to see whether I'm going to change it to a candle or I think candles would make sense by the bedside. I think an oil lamp might be the route, or a gas lamp for that floor lamp might be the route. So gas lamps, though, would have been fixtures attached to the house. All right, anyhow, we're going to play that intro one more time, just so if you missed it at the beginning, you can catch it. And then we'll rock and roll, and we'll do more. We'll basically start revising these pages, and continue our commentary. So I'll be right back. Here it is again, one more time, just so you guys, if you missed the intro, here's the new intro to my live stream that you're going to be seeing at the beginning every time. Here it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's live stream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.
Okay, I was just showing that off one more time. Basically, that'll be at the beginning of every live stream, which I'm actually really excited about. It's not like too snazzy. It's just my logo with like some kind of effects. It's got Philip Chandler's lovely caricature that he did of me. And it's got Jim Lujan introing it with the "Let's Get Ready to Crumble." Paul Pate said, "Nice golden crested logo. Thank you." And so that's going to be our new kind of intro, and maybe things will start getting a little more spicy, like content wise, like with the logo. Like I would like to do kind of an animation with like a transparency for the logo down here, things like that. We'll start kind of gradually adding to it as this is a work in progress, as all of our streams are, I think. So anyhow, I'm excited to have like an official countdown to beginning. That'll allow, especially if instead of fish tank cleaning, I had been able to work this morning. That's what you would have seen. So yeah, so we're going to see what all we can do about these lamps. I think I'll start with the lamps by the bedside. And this might actually be valuable for people because, so like, to be honest, I don't think digital is that much quicker than traditional for me when it comes to final execution. Both of my comics, Jacob's Apartment and Two Stories, my two graphic novels that I have out currently, as well as like the short comic Numb, which was like, if you hunt for it, or maybe send me like a nice email or something, I could probably get you a copy. But it's like the first 24 page like professional comic I did. all of those were inked traditionally. And so, and penciled traditionally on like paper. Parts of 2 stories were actually penciled digitally, like the kid sequences in 2 stories. For some reason, it just helped me to like blue line those parts. But anyhow, the point being, I didn't find it slower than traditional. I actually found that I could work like quicker. I can actually ink by hand like much quicker than I can digitally. But what you're going to see right now is one of the big advantages of working digitally. This is a different style, obviously, chosen for the content or the context of the book, where it's like much more of like a Victorian feel, like a tinted plate kind of vibe. But what you'll see while I do commentary on this weird Tim Pool podcast that we started doing commentary on a couple episodes ago, what you're going to see is like the advantage of working digitally, because we can do revisions pretty quick. So we have to revise some finished pages. So that's what I'm going to be working on. And what you'll notice is usually what I'll do is draw what I want there in like cyan or some color that's just going to like on a different layer. And then I'll erase out the line and the shading underneath. And hopefully, like if I do it well enough, it won't be much cleanup after all to kind of make that work. And then we'll kind of adjust the flats accordingly. So that's what you're going to see me working on. And let's just get back to this just wacky. Okay, let's see the name of it again. The Culture War, Episode 20, Debating Masculinity with Destiny, John Doyle, and Lauren Chen. So let's get into it. I'm so glad to be working on art right now and not fish tanks. And I feel like that's going to be my first question on Corey's AMA on Artcasters. It's going to be like, how did you live with a gigantic fish tank? Because he had like a huge, like, I think saltwater tank. And I'm like, how could this was a nightmare. It was only like 37 gallons. It's like, I can't imagine if that was like a 200-gallon tank with like saltwater equipment and stuff attached. That's anyhow. Okay. Let's continue with the commentary on this. Let me know what you guys think of the new intro. And okay, let me also know if you can hear this.
They're not gonna do that because the incentive is just to keep you coming back and keep you paying the subscription model or anything. So
I think we went to an ad.
The whole world rose a clamor of hysterical joy.
World War I promised us
a lot of young men are going to be led down very dark paths because in a healthy relationship, the other person, their only concern shouldn't just be to keep you happy and keep you logging on like it would be with an AI.
Here's the thing about the AI girlfriend that you need to imagine.
By the way, just to recap this conversation we're doing commentary on, it started. Sorry, my allergies kind of are kicking up a little bit. So the conversation started with John Doyle kind of making this bizarre assertion that there used to be an era in time where kids would like have fights to the death on the playground over their broken Legos. And now we're so PC that kids can't just beat each other to death. And that like, he's made some wild claims, like weird stuff about PTSD being caused by just not being allowed to be a hero, which is a little odd because I think most people think PTSD is caused by people being exposed to the constant threat of dying. And that causes like this kind of ridiculous like survival adrenaline to run through your body that makes you snap at a moment's notice, like, which is very advantageous adaptation for humans in like really dire situations. But when you're at like a movie theater, not so great. And it makes people have trouble kind of shutting that off and like being able to kind of re-enter society in a way where they don't feel like they're going to get shot like every 2 seconds. That's what PTSD is. But this John Doyle guy has made other claims about it. He thinks it has more to do with like well, war's so fun and manly, and you just have to suffer from like not being manly, and that's what causes PTSD. That's kind of his take on it. He's made some really wild takes about women and men that make it really clear. I don't think he's dated people, and then they've gone on this like puritanical conversation. John Doyle, not Destiny. Luckily, Destiny's been pretty sane in it, but John Doyle and Lauren Chen, I guess the other guest, have been going on like a puritanical riff about how porn is like this horrible, awful thing and should be eradicated from the face of the earth, and how horrible it is for kids. I think Destiny very rightly like kind of pointed out like, yeah, I mean, it's not great, but like, I mean, we've always had access to really things, and kids will be kids, you know. I don't know. Anyhow, let's continue listening to the conversation. Somehow they've deviated the topic of AI girlfriends. So anyhow, let's continue.
Have these chat bots, like her, for instance, is a good example. I didn't see it, but I think the premise was that her was dating everybody or something like that. Like everybody.
That's how it kind of evolves. But she starts off as just his version of a Siri, who is AI, and then it kind of devolves into something.
Imagine a gigantic demonic octopus.
By the way, I don't know where they're going with this, but it does seem like a deviation. The other thing I was going to say is we're doing candles here instead of lamps with lampshades. So that's what I'm going to be doing right here, is revising our finished pages to have the correct lighting. What's up? Yeah.
And all of its tentacles are reaching out, and each tentacle has a mask on it, and people are talking to one mask like, what a great person, and it's actually this gigantic mass. The AI is one system acting like individuals. That is horrifying, and everyone's just like staring at it like, oh, AI girlfriend, it's so good. That creeps me out.
There's actually a Futurama movie.
Oh yes,
Beast
right.
Made $1 billion. Yeah.
Yep. So let's do this. I have this tweet from Adam22 because this was big in the news and everybody was ragging on this guy. And you can't say he's not funny. They're calling him a cuck, and I guess it's because his wife slept with another guy. He posted this image. Said, "Why do people keep tweeting this at me? I don't get it." And it's a woman pregnant with a black baby and a man smiling and putting his hands on the woman's stomach. So I'm interested in, as we move the conversation forward, the discussion into monogamy. You mentioned earlier, if everybody was in an open relationship, there would be no.
Paul said the new intro rocks, and I think who they're addressing is Adam22. I think is the host of like the kind of hip hop show called No Jumper. I don't really follow it too much, but it is like a huge YouTube channel. And I have no idea the context of what they're talking about. So I guess we'll just listen in and hopefully maybe get some context to it. I'm just going to do for this one, it's going to be just a generic candle with like a candle holder, as long as it's not gigantic. And that looks very gigantic. So we have to actually go a little bit smaller with it. If you hear noise in the background, that's just my wife getting my son's bath ready. Okay, let's continue.
Infidelity.
Which was, by the way, that was a joke. Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. But, here's the idea. I mean, we're seeing a lot of this rise up. Polycules. This guy.
I was going to say, like, it is funny to me that, like, Tim Pool just sort of ignored what Destiny just said, which is, I think the guy was joking by saying, what does this even mean, right? Like, I don't think he's unaware of, like, what people are memeing about there. I think he was just kind of making a joke out of it by being, like, silly about it, because what else can you do if you have, like, the internet just freaking the heck out? Let's see here. Okay, that looks a little bit better. So I think what we'll do here is erase this out. This is back when I was keeping the line layer and the shadow layer separated, but unfortunately I wasn't yet in the process where I was keeping them different. Paul says, Tim's voice grinds me. I can't stand him. Yeah, I mean, my impression so far of Tim Pool is that he's that guy, like he's like the Steve Buscemi character in that sketch, you know, where he's like, "Hey, what are all the cool kids up to, cool kids?" Like, you know what I mean? He constantly is like mentioning like skateboarding and like he's like, "I'm on the left too," and it's like, no, you're not a leftist at all. You have like two takes that are a little different than like the party line, but in general, you're kind of a classic, like, you know, very actually kind of very far right, and masking as like a, oh, I'm a centrist kind of guy, because he's like, no, I mean, you hear his talking points and stuff, it's like the guy's far right. And then aside from that, like just politically, his own stance, he just kind of seems like he's trying to seem cool, and it just, you know, again, like I like playing music, you know, I like doing things, but I'm not under some pretense that I'm like somehow a cool dude. Um, and I think that like one of the least cool things you can do is kind of get in a cool proof contest. I mean, like I remember when he was talking to Emma Vigland, he was talking about like, yeah, I got like a skate park like built in my studio and stuff, and it's like, okay, but like, why are you bringing that up? Like, it's just this weird, like, again, like I know guys that are like pretty hip skater dudes or whatever, and they're not like, I don't know, they're not constantly like dropping what they do as if it's like there's just something really weird and it's hard to identify, but um, it definitely, it's like John Doyle's attempt at defining this masculinity or men and manhood that he feels is missing. Like, even though he couldn't define what he calls a man at the beginning of this conversation, it's kind of one of those things. I'll pull his cop out strategy from this interest from this debate that you can see on a previous stream, where I'll just say there's something douchey about Tim Pool, and you just kind of know it when you see it. You know it when you see it, and part of it is that like, hey guys, check out my skateboard, and you're like, I don't know, like none of us are skating right now, but yeah, but look at it, it's rad, and check out my band, and you're like, okay, but like, okay. Yeah, it's just, and then it'd be like, what? You don't think my band's cool? You don't think this is cool? Anyhow, he's just got this like, just a desperation about him, which is bizarre because he's very successful at what he does. I mean, clearly he has like a skate park at his compound up there, so I would imagine, you know, he's doing all right, but he just seems so desperate to prove that he's doing all right. It's just very strange, and you know it when you see it. Okay, let's continue.
Being called a cuck because his wife, I guess, what did she did?
You know what it is? It's like in a movie when you have like a government plant, like somebody who's like a member of the FBI or something, and or like the narc, you know, who like kind of shows up like on campus, and they're like, "Hey, cool kids, I'm like you." Like, he's like that, but instead of like, you know, narking for cops or whatever, he's like, "Hey, cool kids, vote for cool Donald, cool Trump, because he's the coolest cool there is." You know what I'm saying? Because like all the hip kids are doing it. And by the way, I'm not like actually on the right, even though I say like really crazy far right stuff all the time. Sometimes I'm for abortion. Like, that's kind of him. I don't know. It's really weird where he's like, you like abortion, right? So do I. But I'm on the right and I like Trump. And it's like, okay, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Oh, Paul said, Josh, my wife left me for a couple days. I hate it. I don't know what to do. You'll probably just be a workaholic. Like, if you're anything like me, Paul, which I think you are kind of similar to me, you're probably just going to be a workaholic and have weird sleeping hours. That is the party lifestyle of an illustrator whose wife is out of town. It's like, the wife's out of town. It's time to get hog wild with the page and draw some pictures late at night. And then like an hour later, you're like, I need, at least for me, I need someone around to like tell me to go to sleep. Like, My wife is really good at like catching me when I'm going to go on like a bender and just like work like ridiculous hours, you know, on this crack cocaine called comics. Okay, let's continue listening to Cool Tim Pool. That's going to be what I'm going to call him from now on. Hey, I'm Cool Tim Pool. My name rhymes with cool. All right, dude. Okay, here we go.
What was
Isn't
this
that
word?
literally cuckoldry? Like, it's not just he's being called one that would make him.
No,
one?
no. I think cuckoldry is a fetish where you like watching your wife get banged, right? Is that what it is?
Generally involves some aspect of humiliation, but some
Huh.
people cuck hunting has become like the most obsessive like projection of insecurity, like that everybody in the red pill and larger space on the internet where people are like obsessed with like finding cucks and seeing cucks and calling people cucks.
It's
Like
a
if your girlfriend
cuck-
fucked too many
cuck
guys in the
fetish.
past, you're eternally being cucked. Sometimes if you're a dad, having a daughter can make you a cuck because you're just training her to get fucked by another guy. Like the cuck hunting
Wow.
shit is like an insane
remember
level of
that.
projection of insecurity today. But
the word it does go back, hundreds of years in the English tradition, and it's not just a guy who was cheated on. Like, if you come home and your wife's banging another guy,
This dude's like every time John Doyle speaks, I just lose like I have lost so much respect for this guy who I had never heard before watching this debate, that at this point there's no respect to be had, and yet still I've lost more just by him speaking, where he's like, yeah, that point on cucks, here, let me tell you the weird red pill line about how this stems back to like the gentry and the landed gentry in England, and like it's like, oh, come on, like stop, just at least just be upfront about it and just own the talking point that you're trying to make, you 21-year-old moron. Sorry, he's 23. Hold on 2 seconds. We're at the 41-minute mark. We're gonna keep going till about I don't know. We'll probably call it at like 8:10 or something. Because I just realized I also need to read to my kid when he goes to bed, and then we're going to do Artcasters at 9 o'clock, so you guys better be sticking around. But I'm going to put on a trailer for Jacob's apartment, and then we're going to come back and hear their interesting commentary and discussion about cucks, apparently. Exciting times. I'll be right back. Clearly it seems that only in dreams can we these things we've seen and walk around breathing I don't know the part to play in this heart of mine. There's dissonant things, they split at the seams. Apartment, it's what's happening. That's what Cool Tim Pool says. Anyhow, that's my new thing. Hey, cool kids, it's what's happening. That's my new pitch. My new pitch for my comics is going to be like, hey, happening folks, how you doing in this happening cool world? If you want to be hip, you need to get Jacob's Hip Apartment. It's the hippest jive you'll ever hear. It's got to be like using like slang terminology that like no one could use, or terminology that is like modern, you know, but it's like no cap, brother. Like it's like mixing like more modern slang that's like definitely outside of your generation that I wouldn't even attempt to use because I've aged out of it. And I feel like somewhere in that blender is Tim Pool's like recipe for success. Dude, I want a skate park at my house. I mean, not really, because I don't even skateboard anymore. I don't make pretenses to either. But you know, I wouldn't mind some Tim Pool money. So maybe I should start doing his shucking and jiving like his fast talking jive. Okay, let's continue.
As unfortunately be like, you're a cuck. But traditionally what it means is the guy who is like rationalizing it. Someone like Adam 22 who's like, yeah, my wife is sleeping with other guys, but it's okay because I'm making money on it and I'm going to tweet this funny meme and it's going to go viral and people are going to subscribe to the only.
Sorry, so the hardest thing to buy here is this dude, John Doyle. Like, I rarely want to go into somebody's appearances, but here he's trashing on like a guy and his wife's relationship or something, and it's like, look, like there's this old idea. I've mentioned this on the last stream that I have. That's like whatever people do in the privacy of their own homes, if it's not hurting other people, who gives three shits like about it? Who cares, right? Is the water still going? Thank you. Anyhow, I just noticed the bathtub was still running, so now we're gonna have a bathtub overflow situation to match our fish tank situation. So we'll be back at Home Depot. No, I'm just kidding. Anyhow, so the whole point being like, there's this whole kind of live and let live thing that I used to believe. My dog is trying to warn people not to come near the house because that's their job. But yeah, like there's this whole old idea of just kind of living and letting live, like that I feel like used to be kind of something that maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like even conservatives back in the day weren't like so obsessed with other people's like lives. Maybe that's just me being like fantastical or something, but it's like, yeah, I mean, like generally, like it's just kind of a nice thing to just let people be. However, if you're going to get in the arena of like criticizing people's wives and stuff, then you kind of open yourself up for criticism. And I just say, look at this dude's face and then look at Adam 22, who I'm not even familiar with. I don't really watch No Jumper. I've just seen Adam 22 because he's famous, right? Who do you think looks more like, I hate to say it, like a cuck? Like, who looks more like one? This dude looks like, if I wanted to like write an article about a school shooter incel, and I drew what it would look like, this is what this guy looks like. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you see like an article like 3 years from now, and it's this guy's face at the next like school shooting. That's what he looks like. So I'm just saying it's so weird that like he is just like, and yeah, to be like a man. And I'm like, dude, you look like a mathlete. What are you talking about, man? Anyhow, let's continue.
Fans for $5 a month or something like that.
Wasn't this something with Hunter Avalone as well? I don't know.
That gets a lot messier, but
we love Hunter.
Oh, a lot messier.
Yeah,
I love that. Like
Hunter. I don't really care about the personal drama, and you know, my attitude is like, dude, I really don't care what this Adam guy is doing. I don't care what his relationship or his.
I love that he brought it up, and then he's like, yeah, you know, I was just going to talk about how this Adam 22 guy is kind of a cuck. But anyhow, and people are kind of okay with that nowadays. But anyhow, I don't really want to get into that because I'm cool Tim Pool. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, you know, let's talk about Joe Biden's kid and like other weird conspiracy theories from the right and somehow tie that into like a weird random pivot to like the most bizarre topic. Okay, let's continue. Okay, sorry, I've lost the coolness. We need to get it back from Mr. Cool over here. All right, he should be wearing shades.
What he likes and what he doesn't like, what he wants his wife to do or not do. But I do think it's interesting, and this is a big culture war debate. Honor and shame around whether or not you're in an open relationship or a monogamous relationship, whether or not you are emasculated because your wife has sex with other men. Personally, not my cup of tea. I prefer monogamy. Yeah.
I gotta look at this. Is Tim Pool even married? Like, the weird thing about these conversations to me always with, like, especially, like, I don't know if Tim Pool would be considered like red pill or anything. I guarantee you he probably listens to a lot of red pill content for sure. But like it's like, again, this kind of mystified me on the last one. You know, I've been for clicks and stuff. I've been like actually titling these, you know, with the people's names in them, because it's like I don't know, it generates more interest and views. But it's like, what's bizarre to me is just like, why do what gives any of these guys like authority to talk about relationships? I just don't understand it. The moderator of the channel said something really interesting. My mod, as you guys know, Frank Salazar, really nice guy, on one of the last streams that I did, kind of commenting on these guys. He was saying, I don't take marriage advice from people with broken marriages, right? Unless it's for like stuff not to do. He's like, I'm not going to listen to parenting advice from people who've never had kids. Like, and then he's like, and I'm definitely, you know, not going to listen to like life advice, people whose lives are in like complete disorder, right? So to me, it's just bizarre because it's like, again, this is a guy critiquing some random internet personality's like, you know, relationships, and yet it's like, okay, if we're opening that up, like, what do you do, dude? Are you married? I don't know. I don't know anything about Tim Pool really, but he doesn't strike me as a guy who's like, I don't know. It's just weird. Again, you know, that kind of phony cool thing vibes, you know, where it's like, I get the girls, and you're like looking at this guy like, dude, really? Like, really? Okay, let's continue.
I'm not interested in any of that stuff. I also just don't.
I just brought it up, but I'm not
so
interested in it.
The question is it bad for society?
So slippery.
Is it in some way emasculating? What do you guys think?
I mean, is it bad for society? I don't know if that's. I think it would.
I'm sorry. He goes, I'm not really into this topic. I don't really want to talk about, you know, this guy that I brought up like 5 minutes ago. And, you know, I don't really want to get into it because I'm cool. But still, at the same time, let's talk about it right now. What do you think? It's like, but wait, but you just said you didn't want to. Slippery pseudo cool dude. Okay, let's continue. Paul Pate said, school shooter incel, you're on fire, Josh. Thank you.
Probably is best for people to be able to pick their own relationship styles and sort themselves out that way. Like 50% of marriages ending in divorce is probably bad for society, right? If those people would have been better off in some other situation in terms of relationship style, probably be better for society. Would it be better?
Are those our choices though? Either 50% of marriages are ending divorce.
You know what's horrible about this? I'm literally looking this up, right? Like they have these like oil lamps that are on like stands, but the problem is that it looks like a freaking gumball machine. I feel like it's that character from MS3T2K or whatever. Doesn't that look like a gumball machine? Oh well. Gumball machine it is. We're going with it and we're growing with it, okay? We're going with it and we are growing with it. Because that's what we do. We're all gonna do that. Okay, I am obviously a little sleepy and out of it, and that is okay. Okay, so we're gonna save this as let's see here, page 25, final 2. So I have to say, like, okay, gonna give Tim Pool a little bit of credit here. He managed to not join the 3 versus 1, 3 on the right versus 1 on the left conversation as a participant until about a half an hour in. So that's an improvement from the Emma Vigeland one, even though he doubled the unfair odds on his show. So I'll give him credit for that. He did moderate better instead of like, which I think is supposed to be the structure of the show, is like he'll have guests on and then they debate and he kind of moderates. At this point, he's kind of broken into just being a participant, which is fine. It's his platform, but it's interesting to see. He was doing okay at first. Let's continue.
or people just have open relationships, because all of this is very new. So I think a lot of people act as if, well, it's either polyamory or divorce.
Sure.
A lot of human history kind of bears that perhaps.
I'm not saying that it has to be one or the other. I'm just saying that railroading everyone into monogamous relationships is probably not. That's definitely not the best idea. Railroading everybody to that with the divorce rate of what it is now, that's not working. I'm not saying that like it needs to be everybody has to be polyamorous or open or whatever, because I don't even think the majority. I don't even think a plurality of people can handle those types of relationship styles. But yeah, I think that letting people, I think the important thing is you let people explore, you let people figure out what they want. Some people try some things, they don't like it, they try other things, that's fine. But I think that it's important to, I would say, like, give people the freedom to explore. If you don't like a certain relationship style, I think that's fine. I don't think it's bad if a person wants to be monogamous, so they want to be polyamorous or open or whatever. But I think
here's a wild idea. How about you just kind of do whatever you want in your relationship as long as you're not harming another person? How about that? Like, you know, and then let other people make decisions for how they want to, you know, have relationships and stuff like that. Like, why does everyone feel like they have to be like the relationship enforcers, like walking around? Again, I'm, you know, weirdly enough, like my own marriage, you know, is a pretty conservative marriage. Like I'm not a conservative, but it's like, you know, we're pretty traditional, like with the way it's set up. And it's like, you know, I mean, it's just bizarre to me that like the idea that there's like people walking around like being cops about, you know, about other people's relationships. It's just such a weird kind of thing. There's also another thing I have to fix on this line, so we'll get back to that in a second. But first, we'll just go ahead and do our color fills for these candles. And we have removed the lamps, and we have replaced them with candles. This is going to be my day, you guys. Changing out. I'm not going to do the colors for the lamp yet. Yeah, Paul was saying maybe a 50% divorce rate isn't actually bad. Who's to say? Yeah, that's a good point. Like, there's really, I forget who said it. It might have been like a Louis C.K. bit before he kind of became a little creepy or whatever, where I think he said no good marriages like end in divorce. Like, so I think he was talking about how for him it was frustrating when he got divorced or whatever, because people would be like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, no, this is like, you realize like there's a reason. Like it wasn't a good situation, you know? And, you know, I'm not a fan of divorce or anything, but yeah, again, like what happened to the whole kind of live and let live mentality that I feel like I kind of grew up with, where it's like, hey, you know, other people have different ways of living and different relationships work differently. And, you know, all that like lovely, like Libby stuff, you know, the stuff that all of us little lefties are all about usually. Which is like, just let people do their thing. If they're not hurting people, who cares? Okay, let's continue.
It's weird that sometimes people obsess over and meat watch other people's relationship styles so much. There are people, I think it's totally fair to look at Adam 22's situation. I mean, they both do porn, so it's like that's already like out there. But like to look at his situation, like I don't think I would ever do that. I wouldn't want that. I think that's totally fine. It gets really weird how obsessive people are over like the dicks and pussies of people that they don't like, though. I think that's kind of weird. But
well, it's weird to obsess over individuals that you don't know and their relationships. But I think more broadly, if we are talking about on a societal level.
Have you noticed this like tactic that's been on with the right-leaning people on this panel, where they'll be like, well, I don't want to talk about that. Like, that's a good point. I don't really want to get into that. But, and then they get into it. Like, and I noticed that they've been doing that multiple times. Like, Tim Pool brought up this topic, literally citing this Adam 22 guy, and was like, but I don't want to talk about Adam 22. But what do you guys think? And it's like, well, you do. And then, like, you brought it up. And then similarly, she's saying, well, I don't want to really like judge or critique other people's like, you know, sex lives or anything like that. But, and it's like, okay, but that's okay. So now you are going to do that. Okay. Let's continue.
We know the best environment to raise kids in. And so I don't think it's just being authoritarian for people to say, this is probably not a good trend that we're heading in. And therefore, even if I don't care about what this individual guy does, this is still not something we should be embracing.
Am I crazy? Did she say authoritarian in kind of a weird way? Because it sounded like she said authoritarian, like it was an authorship thing. Did you guys notice that? Authoritarian? Okay, anyhow. But I misspeak all the time. I'm just that's just a little razz in there, but let's continue.
We should be criticizing it because this does have societal effects. This does affect the lives of children who aren't going to grow up in stable homes with both a mother and a father, because these relationships, I think, are naturally going to be volatile. So I think we there is a good reason for us to criticize it.
Sure, but one, the best, I'm pretty sure statistically speaking, the best household to raise kids is 2 gay parents. So like already like the
based on what?
Is that real?
Because I think it's because gay parents have to jump through a few more hoops when it comes to adoption.
What are gay parents? What is that?
It's a man and a man.
How does that work?
So you're saying
parents?
Well, it's called adoption.
That doesn't make you a parent necessarily.
Oh my gosh, this guy is insane. Did he actually say what are gay parents? And then when they said like, oh, it's, you know, when 2 gay people like adopt a kid, and the guy's response was, but that's not really parents. Are you kidding me? Is he going to go back to like the dumbest argument in the book that like just because somebody like knocked someone up that makes them a parent? It's the dumbest argument ever. If I adopt a kid, that kid should, as much like if I'm a good parent to that kid, it shouldn't matter whether it's like my own progeny or not, you know? Just the idea that you would call somebody who just happened to be like a donor, you know, the parent, like that. Just parenting is a verb. It's not a it's an action. Like it's something you participate in. It's not just like a one-time thing of like, hey, I knocked somebody up, therefore I am a parent. In the way that I think they're talking about parenting. I guess maybe he could get into semantics, because I guess we could say, yeah, biologically you wouldn't be the parent. But does anyone with kids, I think, would make the argument that it doesn't really matter if you're biologically the parent if you haven't been present in your kid's life. Like it literally is the act of parenting, you know, your kid, that affects their outcome. Anyhow, let's continue. But that is so insane that he's like, whoa, I mean, you got wrong. That's not what I'd really call a parent. Okay, what would you like? Are you literally going to tell every parent who's adopted a child that they're not the parent of the child? If John Doyle over here, who I don't think has, I mean, again, like I just don't even think this dude's ever. I'd be surprised if he has like a nephew, you know, much less like has been around kids. You know, the guy who thinks that our children should be fist fighting in a Thunderdome over broken Legos at a playground. He had talked about this. Now he's talking about how, well, they can't be parents because they didn't give birth to the kid. It's like, really? Really? You really want to go down that road, dude? You know, back in the day when, like, you know, you used to be able to fight to the death over Legos.
Barely. If you're 2 men and you like adopt a child,
is this the next Matt Walsh documentary? What is a parent? I mean, you don't call it parent. I'm just saying that the style of household, like obviously a broken household, the traditional broken household, I think we all agree is horrible for children. So man abandons mom, no child support. Mom has to work and fend for herself and take care of the kid, and is usually in a shitty neighborhood. That's the worst outcome. I think we all agree with that.
Yes.
But then, like, again, if you got the 50% of marriages ending divorced, you've got like all sorts of problems relating to like only half of women even get their full child support and everything. That style is not working right now.
But that style is not monogamy. Like that's not traditional monogamy. What we have with no fault divorce, this kind of exploded. That's representative of the monogamous and marriage lifestyle now. But historically, that has not been the case. So, I mean, I think there's grounds for also bringing in the question of divorce into all of this. We're too keen to, I guess. And obviously, I'm not talking about, oh, your husband beats you. What was that? Whatever clip. Endure. Like that's not what I'm
I'll take
saying.
credit for that. Yeah,
Okay, that clip is really hilarious. Yeah, Paul was saying that gay parenting is true, not necessarily adoption. He said, my daughter's wife got pregnant twice from a donor. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And the thing is, it being the donor, again, like there's a difference between like a biological parent, but like I have so many friends who've adopted kids. Like, you know, there is literally it. I would not call someone a parent just because they impregnated someone. I wouldn't. Like, as a parent, I think there's more to it than that. And if you're not willing to kind of put in the work and, you know, be an actual parent, then which I think is a verb. I think it's an action, right? I don't think it's a noun to be a parent. You know, I think to parent is to raise and, take care of a kid. I think that's what parenting is. And I have so many friends who've adopted kids and stuff. And like, they're parents to their kids. Like, they're not like, again, you know, legally they're considered parents to their kids. I don't think they see much of a difference between, you know, I have a couple friends who've adopted a kid and then gone on to have a kid. Like, maybe they initially adopted because they couldn't, and then it turns out they could. And so they, you know, have adopted kids and then kids that are their own. And like, they treat them equally. It's the strangest thing. It's so weird, this red pill space, like, to where they're actually going to try to make the argument that like adopted parents aren't parents. It's like, what planet? Like, I thought like this was supposedly, I thought the right was supposed to be like the party of like family values and stuff like that.
Was that you?
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
no,
come on.
I wasn't the one that said endure. That was our friend. That was our friend MLD. What I
Jeez.
said was, and Destiny understands this as a former Catholic. Is his wife brought up divorce, and I said, you know, I don't believe in divorce. It's not a real thing.
I was married in the Catholic Church too,
And-
so I know that it's off the table.
Yeah, so I meant that in like a very sort of like metaphysical sense. I didn't mean like literally like, you know, separate. And so later on, I did say, like, in that same monologue, like, yeah, obviously separate, get yourself out of that situation. Destiny's wife clipped that out. I understand. You got to play the game. That's fine. I'm not
To be
mad.
fair, didn't you say divorce?
Okay, so what they are citing is actually a conversation that I think this guy had with Destiny before, where he literally said that even if somebody's being abused, they should stay in a like physically abused, they should stay in a marriage. And it's like that is the weirdest advice I've ever heard. If I had a friend who was getting physically abused in their marriage, I wouldn't be like, you need to like endure and stick through it. I'd be like, dude, get the hell out of there. Get away from an abuser. Paul said all of these words and sayings that these people haven't thought through is childish intelligence. I agree. I think Destiny's like probably the only person here. Again, I don't even agree with Destiny's lifestyle choices. You know, he's in a very open marriage and stuff like that. I wouldn't be comfortable with that for my own life. But you know what? Who cares? He does his own thing. And at the end of the day, he's pretty rational and kind of like the only intelligent voice in this room at this point. But let's continue and see where it goes. You know, I don't want to talk about it, but I'm just going to use their strategy. Okay, let's continue.
Divorce should be illegal.
I mean, well, that's probably true as well. But like a separate conversation. But she is right that, you know, with things like no fault divorce, as that started to be integrated throughout the country, you saw states that were passing these laws
ladies and
had
gentlemen,
couples reporting like increased likelihood of considering that as even an option. So I think the like
he thinks divorce should be illegal. I can't. Okay, we're playing a trailer. Okay, we're playing one last trailer. I think, you know what? Actually, it's about 8. So let's call it. Let's call it for this stream. I will say, if you haven't yet, hit subscribe so you get notifications when we're about to go live. Hit the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. And stick around on the channel because at 9 o'clock, we're going to have an AMA with Corey Kerr, where we're going to talk to him about communicating. I'm blanking out the term, but I think we called it communicating important or complex topics in your art. And it's going to be really cool. Corey's an intelligent and kind of amazing animator and illustrator. And we because we have guests on the show, we often forget to like talk to each other about what each other are doing and stuff like that. And so this is going to be, we did this AMA thing with Scott Cirkland, and now we're going to do it with Corey. So make sure you guys stick around on the channel for that. It's on Artcasters. I think there's already a thumbnail up, and it'll be at 9 p.m. Pacific. I don't know what that is on other time ranges because I'm a Californian and that's the only time zone I need to know. That's right. Anyhow, all right. I will see you guys on the next on Artcasters tonight. It should be a good one. And Paul said, "I love that you reached your limit with these guys." Well, no, I actually looked at the time and was like, "Okay, I gotta call it because it's about time." But Corey Kerrcasters tonight. Kerrcasters, join us. Okay, I will see you guys at 9. I'll probably be doing more of this editing that we just saw, the very exciting exchange of lamps to things that are period appropriate, whilst engaging in conversation with the Corey. So, all right. I'll see you guys on Artcasters. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. If you haven't yet, just drop a like in there. Like, just click that little like button. Goes a long way. And we'll continue our commentary of this maybe after Artcasters. We'll see. All right. Have a good night, and I'll see you guys on the next live stream. Actually, Artcasters. Bye.